The Australian energy regulator has revealed that power bills are set to rise, making it almost impossible for Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to deliver on his promise to lower electricity costs by $275 a year by 2025. And just before we get into this, here's a quick reminder of the promise he made, apparently 97 times.
Reducing power prices by $275. That will reduce power prices by $275. $275 a year. $275 a year.
We won't play all 97 occasions. Joining me now is senior reporter at the Daily Telegraph, Rolfe. John, thanks for your time. Look, the Daily Telegraph, your paper today, ran a front page criticising the PM for his broken promise on lowering power bills. Look, this is going to be almost impossible for him to fulfil at this stage.
That's right, Sharri. As the opposition put it in that story, he's got Buckley's. There's just no way. Power prices have moved badly against the Prime Minister, who made that pledge, as you said, 97 times. And importantly, it was in a key policy document, Powering Australia, released in December 2021, which was about the worst possible time he could have made such a commitment, because after that, wholesale power prices went bananas. And that's meant that a household in Western Sydney that pays a standard retail plan is now up for nearly $1,000 more than they were when the Prime Minister, the now Prime Minister, made that promise.
Yeah, this is the point, isn't it? That when the election campaign was going on, when these promises were being made, we already could see that inflation was going to start to rise. It was already obvious, you know, that the war in Ukraine and Russia had been going on for a while. You didn't need to be an economist to see that cost of living in a variety of areas was going to get a lot more difficult.
So true. And as we editorialise today, it's very easy to make these promises in opposition, but suddenly, once in government, they become, in Chris Bowen's words yesterday, just an ambition to lower prices. They're no longer seemingly committed to actually reducing your power bill compared to what it was when they released that policy document. And I think it's going to come back to haunt them. Australians are incredibly sensitive to movements in their electricity bills, much more so seemingly than they are to their mortgage costs, which tend to move around and certainly have lately by far more. Electricity is a huge political issue, and really the Prime Minister has got an albatross around his neck because of the promises he made but clearly has no intention of keeping.
Do you think this is going to be an issue for Labor, or, you know, people will acknowledge that it's a broken promise, but the coalition is so weak at the moment federally that really it's not going to impact on whether Labor gets in for another term or not?
I think if we continue to see this sort of chaos in the power market, if we see a repeat of the disorder that occurred last winter, or happens perhaps in a summer before the election, then I think that people will sheet it home to Labor, because they'll look at the transition that we're supposedly going through from relying on baseload power and a fairly predictable grid to one where you've got much more peakiness, as the AER describes it, where there's really no longer an economic case to run a baseload power station because of all this solar on people's roofs during the day, but unfortunately is no help when we all come home from a hot day like it is in Sydney today, 35, switch on the air conditioner, but there are no batteries and there's no solar, and therefore that's when the coal has to kick in. But you can't run a coal-fired power plant on those sorts of business models. It just doesn't work anymore, and those boards and companies are facing so much pressure to get out of coal. So I really think that we're going to see more trouble for the government here before we get to the next election.
Yeah, and that's not even talking about whether we have any blackouts in winter across the country. Rolfe, thank you very much for your time.